So, good afternoon, and I extend a very warm welcome to all those who are present. I, of course, extend a special welcome to Professor Aparna Vaidik, who is an old friend, my contemporary at JNU, and who has written an absolutely marvelous book on Chandrashekhar Azad, which is such a fine mix of historical research coupled with the writing abilities of a great fiction writer, creative writer. So, the story of what she has written on Chandrashekhar Azad, we would like to hear from herself, but as far as her introduction is concerned, and one thing I must say that the feat that she has achieved by writing that kind of a book and doing such a research on Chandrashekhar Azad is remarkable, because over the last 40-50 years, as far as my awareness goes, not much standard historical research has been done, especially on Chandrashekhar Azad. Of course, people sometimes say these things in general about revolutionaries. I don't know how far that is correct about others, but certainly about Chandrashekhar Azad, I can say that not much good historical research has been done, and therefore, what Aparna has done is all the more remarkable. She is, of course, a professor of history at Ashoka University as of now, and she has previously taught at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., and at University of Delhi. She was educated at St. Stephen's College, Cambridge University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and she has written 4 books: Revolutionaries on Trial, Waiting for Swaraj, My Son's Inheritance, and Imperial Endowments. She is also a recipient of research grants from the British Academy, Andrew Mellon Foundation, Indian Council for Historical Research, and Charles Wallace India Trust. So I once again warmly welcome her, and without any delay invite her to proceed with her lecture titled Chandrashekhar Azad, A Life in Revolution. Welcome.
Thank you, Ravikant, for inviting me here. I've come earlier to Tirumurti as a scholar of Andamans and Indian Ocean. So this is my first time talking about the revolutionaries here. And I see old teachers, friends, and even neighbors in the audience. So thank you all for coming. This is really heartening.
And there are so many seats lying vacant. Probably some people can come to the front row.
Yeah, and I promise this will be interesting. You wouldn't need to escape. And I shall keep it in English also. So I think I'll start my lecture with what Ravikant just said of why, asking why somebody like Chandrashekhar Azad does not draw that kind of historical attention. And just one caveat, my book is actually not a biography of Chandrashekhar Azad. For me, looking at Chandrashekhar Azad was a doorway, a window into looking at the underground lives of the revolutionaries. Yeah, so it's he's more of, his life provides me with more of a narrative spindle around which I have woven my story. So it's not really, because it's not as a biography, this book will not stand. Yeah, so if you were to read it or approach it, not to think of it like that. But it's really about exploring their everyday lives. What are they doing when they're not throwing a bomb? How do they go about their everyday lives? What does it mean to be living an underground life? And what are their imaginations about it? What is their imagination of revolution? What is their imagination of independence? So it's really about that. And in the book, I look at a lot of writing in Hindi. And that's why I was asking, should this lecture be in Hindi? Because I'm looking at a lot of Hindi memoirs. Yeah. So, but before I think that's enough about the book. I'll stick to today's lecture. So I'll begin by posing this question, that why revolutionaries such as Azad have not received historians' attention. What is it about the way we write or the way we think about the past that has not drawn us to a figure like Chandrashekhar Azad? So, and I'll repeat some information that some of you may already have about Azad, but that is again a way to pose some questions. Yeah? So Chandrashekhar Azad dies on 27th February 1931 in Allahabad's Alfred Park. Well-known information. He's cremated by the police, and they take photographs of him, of his dead body. And later, they asked this mechanic to come from Jhansi named Sirajuddin to identify Azad through those photos. Yeah? And a few newspapers carry the information of his passing. Yeah? And some people reading those that news, there are some hartals in some places. But for most part, it goes unremarked. Yeah? Now, the first time that people gather and start sort of commemorating Azad's passing is in 1951. Yeah, so there is a time lag of about 20 years. And the celebration of Shaheed Chandrashekhar Azad Balidan Divas. Yeah, so it's celebrated in Lucknow, and a smarika, a volume, a remembrance volume is taken out. So I found this volume by chance. It was with one of his, the sons of one of his associates, Ramkrishna Khatri. His son Uday Khatri, when I went to Lucknow, gave me that. So that was my first sort of material I found on Chandrashekhar Azad, which was devoted to him. Then this is my finding the material, but after 1951 we skip another few years, and in 1976 the Uttar Pradesh government sanctioned the ritual cremation of Azad, what they call Vidhivat Dah Sanskar. And this was done by Bhagat Singh's younger brother Kultar Singh and Azad's revolutionary associates. So apparently some of Azad's ashes were obtained from the family of a distant relative of this person, Vinayak Mishra, who had supposedly cremated Azad's last remains in 1931. So it's believed that he was having some ashes. And this kalash, the urn bearing the ashes, was taken through various cities of Uttar Pradesh. So from Banaras to Lucknow it was taken, and thousands of people joined the procession, and finally the kalash was brought to Lucknow and given to the State Museum for safekeeping. So I'll show you the kalash. This is there. And the plaque next to it tells the story of how the ashes came to the museum. Then the very next year, in 1977, there was celebration of the Golden Jubilee of the hanging of the Kakori revolutionaries in Lucknow. Yeah, and the meeting was held and all that, and they coordinated the celebration with the anniversary of revolt of 1857, and this committee meeting was held in Meerut on 9th and 10th May. So they were coordinating these dates. And then that very year, the President of India, Sanjeeva Reddy, launched the memorial catalogue at the President House. So you see, there are these huge time lags in which Chandrasekhar's memory begins to be commemorated. Now, alongside the commemoration of this, episodic commemoration of Chandrasekhar Azad's life was an impulse for commemorating Bhagat Singh also. So unlike Chandrasekhar Azad, when Bhagat Singh is hanged, there is an outpouring of a lot of literature. There's a lot of literature in almost all Indian languages that comes out, and a lot of it is proscribed, a lot of it is banned. So all the literature it's now today in National Archives of India. There's a lot of writing that came out. And the first biography of Bhagat Singh was written by Jatinnath Sanyal in 1931 itself. So there was a lot of writing on Bhagat Singh. And he becomes a sort of a folk hero in people's memory. He's remembered. Yeah? And then post-independence, two very famous films are made on him. Yeah, one film that all of us know about is that Manoj Kumar's Shaheed. Almost everyone from at least my generation would have seen it. And I feel there are plenty of people from my generation here, so most of you would have seen that film. Yeah, so Bhagat Singh is there. His memory is persisting through the Punjab's folk memory, but not so for Azad. Yeah? And then in 1967, a youth center or Yuvak Kendra is established in the ancestral home of Bhagat Singh in Khatkar Kalan. And this is done by the support of a surviving Gadar revolutionary, Baba Sohan Singh Bakhna. And they start these outreach programs in schools and colleges to, tell people more about Bhagat Singh and about the revolutionaries and all that. And alongside, in the 70s, you have a new archiving zeal. So we have these older professors, Professor Chamanlal and Professor Bipin Chandra. Many of them began this sort of project of recovering Bhagat Singh's writings, yeah, and publishing them. So a lot of documentation happened at that time, and that shifted a little bit of the way people were seeing Bhagat Singh. So up until that point, he is a Punjabi folk hero. Yeah. From 1970s onwards, when his writings are found, at that time, after that, an image of Bhagat Singh as a reading, writing socialist revolutionary starts coming up. That he's not just a gun-toting vigilante or this, surfere or something, but an educated man and all that through his writing. So that's in the 70s. So you see, these two trajectories are very different of how these heroes are remembered. I hope all of you know he was the leader of HSRA. I just assumed that everybody knew that. Anyway, more about that later. Now the question is, what is happening in 1970s that is leading to these commemorative movements? What has shifted? Yeah? So 2-3 things are happening at this time. One is, from late 60s, there is a civil society resistance that has come up. So there is Chipko, there is Naxalism, there is formation of Dalit Panthers, there is the railway strike which eventually leads to emergency. So, and there is somewhere a realization, there is a sort of a rupture between the relationship of the civil society and state. And there is there's this new idea, not new idea, there is this growing realization that the India that people were thinking would come about hasn't come about. So there is greater, civil resistance in these years. And these events spawned a popular desire to reach back for a more radical anti-colonial past. So people began to look for genealogy of violence. They started looking for who else was carrying out armed resistance. So at least Naxalites are very significantly reaching back and looking for, a history that is like theirs. So that's the time a lot of writing starts, new attention starts being paid to the revolutionaries. Another thing that happens is, and that's a shift where the Indian state starts appropriating the revolutionaries, which is new. Yeah, and what happens at this time? So I'll show you one image. In a minute, I'll show you. So, as I said, resistance by different social groups was being presented by the state as self-serving and illegitimate, and as being against the grain of nation's history of sacrifice. So who was being upheld against the Naxalite? The revolutionaries. So revolutionaries are being upheld as, see, these are the sons of Mother India who have sacrificed their blood and lives and all that to nourish the soil, and here you are so ungrateful, taking to armed resistance. So the state appropriation of revolutionaries became a tool for justifying a lot of state excesses, especially against the marginalized communities. Yeah, and this is the late 60s, that archiving impulse and associated with Bhagat Singh. And you see at this time, a lot of Amar Chitra Kathas come up. So Harleen Singh in one of her articles talks about this, that how these revolutionaries are being pitted against the Naxalites to create a public discourse about the revolutionaries. And you see these images in Bagha Jatin and in Chandrashekhar Azad. You can see blood on there. So, and the blood, at least Chandrashekhar Azad's, is like flowing into the soil, so it's nourishing the soil. So, although it's Azad who has the gun in his hand, the blood that is flowing is his. So you see, none of the police officers or other people, their blood is being flown, is coming out. It's the revolutionaries whose blood is flowing. So there is this idea that, look, these are the people who are nourishing the Indian soil with their blood, and they stood up and sacrificed themselves, and here are other people, these social groups who are against the state. Now this state appropriation of the revolutionaries was very interesting because it was juxtaposed to an earlier indifference. Yeah, so from 1935 onwards, once Congress ministries were made, there is a shift in Jawaharlal Nehru's attitude. So up until that point, up until 1935, Motilal Nehru especially was one of the strongest supporters of the revolutionaries and even would give them money. So Kama MacLean's book talks in detail about it, that how many of these Congress leaders were actually supporting these revolutionaries and supplying them funds, supplying them refuge, assisting them with giving them legal assistance and all that. And Motilal Nehru had been at forefront. And some people even say that had he not died, the outcome of Bhagat Singh's case would have been different. Yeah, so people forefront sort of Gandhi's role in it, but actually it was Motilal Nehru who was assisting them. Now, Jawaharlal Nehru also was one of the loudest supporters of these revolutionaries. And however, his attitude shifts once Congress starts forming ministries after the elections in the 1936 elections. So, and because they're seen as a bit hot to handle politically, yeah, so, and this attitude continues till post-independence also. And the revolutionaries themselves, the surviving revolutionaries also have this feeling that they received a short shrift at the hands of the Indian state. Yeah, because we weren't given our due, we were set aside, we were left rotting in the jails, they didn't help us come out of the jails and all that. Yeah, so 1970s and that much marks a definite shift in the attitude of the Indian state. Now, what happens with the historians? Because historians had not paid much attention to the revolutionaries till then. Now you see it because of the archiving, the archiving of Bhagat Singh's writing. There is writing coming out on the revolutionaries after this period. Now, which were the revolutionaries who were being written about? Now, there were two kinds of revolutionaries, or like how do historians write their histories? We write through the archive, right? So the revolutionaries who left behind political writings, yeah, who had the image of brainy anarchists and analogues, such as Bengali revolutionaries, Bhagat Singh, Sachinath Sanyal, even Savarkar. So these are the people on whom more writings began to come out. Historians, their attention went there because these people had left behind something for us to work off. Or the revolutionaries who were appearing in the colonial archive. Now, the revolutionary does not enter the colonial archive just like that as a revolutionary. Yeah? The revolutionary will appear in the colonial archive only when a CID man is tracking them, or when they throw a bomb, or when they carry out a dacoity, or when they assassinate someone. Yeah, so they enter the archive as criminals or anarchists. Yeah, they don't enter it as revolutionaries because it's a colonial archive. So the colonial gaze, the surveillance gaze has to be on them, or they have to have done something for them to appear in the archive. So therefore, histories of trials start getting focused on, because then there is something happening. The archive is documenting that. Yeah, otherwise there is no documentation of the archive. There is no documentation of the revolutionaries because most of the time they were hidden. Yeah, they'll come out, do some action, and then they will enter the archive. So those are the kinds of revolutionaries that start getting attention, and amongst the revolutionaries, it is their actions, the histories of the spectacular actions that start receiving more attention. Now, what is the nature of the histories that these archives produce then? Now, I have just classified them for my own to make it easy for everybody to understand. So what you have up until a certain point, up until say about 10 years ago, what are the kind of histories do we have of revolutionaries? So one foremost way to write these histories was hagiographical. Yeah? So more heroic histories that are documenting the brave hearts, the martyrs. And there is a presumption in these histories that many of these revolutionaries were predestined to become revolutionaries. I'll just show you some more images to talk about this. Then these histories are focused on events and episodes. Yeah? And many of these events are sensational, heroic, and they are masculinized. Because their inner lives or interiority or underground lives are never really focused on. One, there is not much material on it. Second, what is spectacular acquires greater attention, and therefore seen as worthy of historical inquiry. So there is a gender element also here, that interiorized is seen as more feminine. Political is associated with attack or something big happening. So that ends up getting more attention. Third, the story of revolutionaries gets plugged into the larger story of socialism. Now in 1976, the word socialism is inserted into the constitution. Yeah. And there is a growing, the way the archive the documentation is happening in the 70s, it traps the story of the revolutionaries in the language of socialism. So, and the language that had become popular post the Bolshevik revolution. Yeah, so the revolutionaries who are not speaking this language do not make it into history books. Yeah, so you have to be speaking in a particular way, speaking a particular kind of language for you to be denoted or deemed as revolutionary worthy of study. And this also generated a kind of a binary between the left and the right. Yeah, and all of us know, like, we know what these boundaries are. So the left, so as if revolution became something the left did, and violence was something that the right did. So there is this binary. And the revolutionary who is this, the one that speaks the language of socialism, is also the revolutionary who reads and writes. Yeah, an intellectual who's thinking about the revolution and writing about it also. Now, another aspect of these histories was the idea of failure. That although these histories were being generated, they were seen as marginal to the larger enterprise of nationalism. Yeah, because they are failed heroes. They are misguided youth, misfits who are trying to push history before its time. So these are the stories of failed heroes. And failure, so even though they are documenting them, they may be hagiographical, the story that is being told is, this has failed. Yeah, what worked was the larger nationalist movement, of which they had a very small part to play. Oh no, but they were important, so we should be talking about them for the sake of posterity. So that's the kind of, those are the kinds of writings that these generated. I'm going to just show you some more images to sort of elaborate these points. So you see, this is from Amar Chitra Katha. Yeah, and this is a story of Chandrashekhar Azad. I don't know if all of you are able to read. I'll just walk you through these slides because I thought it was interesting. Now, the image on top shows Chandrashekhar Azad in a white shirt. Yeah, and he's playing with his friends. And Chandrashekhar Azad was born in 1906 in Bhaura, a village in Alirajpur state, central provinces. He was a robust, intelligent lad. Yeah, and the next one, he's playing with matches. Why haven't you gone to school? What are you doing? That's his mom asking him. And he says, experimenting mother, a single match gives a good deal of light. I wanted to see how much light a box full of matches could give. And then she says, haven't I told you that fire is dangerous? But it is also useful, mother, chases away darkness. So here, darkness is about colonialism, light is of the revolution. And the story goes on that he keeps holding on to the matches until the fire singes his fingers. So that is that he's willing to sort of have the fire of revolution take him. And so now these kinds of panels, there is the narrative over here is that the revolutionary is predestined to be revolutionary. There is something about them that in the childhood itself, you know that they are going to be revolutionaries. So there is a Hindi saying, no, the put ke paav palne mein dikhte. So there is a presumption over here that their life will unfold in a particular way. And I'll show you one more panel which is saying the same thing. This is the story of Bhagat Singh sewing guns. You would have heard this also. So later in the evening, as Kishan Singh was strolling through his estate with a friend, what are you planting, Bhagat Singh? Rifles. And again, this is like an apocryphal story which is used to say that, you know, he was going to take up arms and that was foretold when he was a child. So these stories of this martyrdom, so this is the telos is martyrdom and that is foretold in the childhood. So a lot of narrative is really going towards that telos to show that no, they were going to do this. Another panel I'll show you just to elaborate the point how all these stories are plugged into stories of socialism also. So here is a panel from Chandrashekhar Azad's comment, the Amar Chitra Katha. So it was year 1921, people had risen in revolt against the British rule. The non-cooperation movement was in full swing. There were anti-government processions in Varanasi almost every day. And you see on top the speech bubble is saying Inqilab Zindabad. And the banners that are being upheld, so it says Inqilab Zindabad in Hindi and Bharat Mata Ki Jai also in Hindi. And then another speech bubble at the bottom saying Bharat Mata Ki Jai. So see, this is year 1921. Do you see a discrepancy in this image? What is the discrepancy? Now 1921, Inqilab Zindabad as a slogan had not become popular. Yeah. So this is a retrospective retrofitting of a slogan onto a particular date. Inqilab Zindabad becomes popular much later, and more so when Bhagat Singh throws the bomb in the Delhi Assembly in 1929 and shouts Inqilab Zindabad. It's not popular at that time, but it is being attributed to. I know when I'm narrating the story, I am treading a very difficult terrain over here. Yeah, that it. Where is my argument going? You may be wondering, but this is just to show that how history writing has always had a sort of, there has always been a issue with the way we write. Yeah, so how this is plugging back Chandrashekhar Azad's story into that of socialism, which he was in 1921. That's not the slogan they are giving at all. Yeah. Okay. So, and again, he's being, his name became Azad because he was asked by the judge, what is your country? So he says Azad, and Swadhinta is my mother, and all of that. So they began caning him. Azad did not squirm. He's not even called Azad at that time. His name is Chandrashekhar Tiwari. So he's, and with each stroke he says, Inqilab Zindabad and Bharat Mata Ki Jai. They're not saying Inqilab Zindabad at that time at all. Yeah. Now I'll show you on the last panel. Now this is a panel from Bhagat Singh's comic. And in this is again a very famous one where he's saying they have come to take him for hanging. He says, Sardar, we have come to lead you to the gallows. And he's reading a book. Yeah, Lenin's biography. He says, just a moment, please. Let one revolutionary meet another. Yeah. So you see there is a conflation. Yeah. And there is some writing on Bhagat Singh's writing by Daniel Illam, Kama McLean, and Chris Moffat. I would highly urge you guys to sort of look at that material because that deconstructs what we mean by writing and authorship of Bhagat Singh. Because his jail notebook was not an original piece of writing, but actually taking down just reproduction of sentences that he liked from various anthologies that he was looking at. Yeah, and often people mistake the jail notebook as an original piece of writing. And many of HSRA's political pamphlets were also written by 3-4 people in the party together. So there's a lot of attribution to saying, okay, Bhagat Singh wrote this, but actually there were 3-4 people writing it. So how do we understand this idea of authorship? And what is authorship and, all of that. So they have destabilized this idea of him being writing in a particular way and putting out original writings. So his writings really were the ones who are really original are the ones he wrote while he was staying at Pratap Press in Kanpur. That material is his. So a lot of later attribution has also happened. So anyway, this was just to show you that a lot of history gets written which sort of got plugged into out of a particular context and then plugs it in and creates a framework through which all history then starts being written. Okay, and where was I? Now, one thing I forgot to mention. Now, in the 70s also, we have at Teen Murti, we have that oral history project. Yeah, that starts from late 60s, I think, and goes on till early 80s, I think.
It starts in 66.
66, no? So, see, that is also happening at that time. So, there is an archiving impulse. Yeah, and that's one of the vastest, most, richest collections of oral history interviews of surviving revolutionaries and nationalists. So, and it was almost lying untouched until Kama McLean looked at it. Yeah, this scholar from Australia who's written the book on Bhagat Singh. And they went about interviewing nearly everybody who was alive at that time. Yeah, so that again, so there is this, in the 70s, there is this sense that India is shifting a corner and we need to document lest the people who were there, who brought India into independence, would be gone. Yeah. Okay, so this is about how history got to be written, and you must be wondering why she hasn't spoken about Azad. I'm just coming to him in a minute. Now, in what way, what is the image of the revolutionary that came through from this framework that was generated in the 70s? How did we start thinking about the revolutionaries? What's our popular imagination about them? Now, the popular imagination that got created, and even history textbooks and history writing has reproduced these images. So, and I'll just pull out 3 of these things. Yeah. So, one is revolutionary as an impatient individual. Yeah, so somebody who has, and that has become an explanatory model for, to either valorize the revolutionaries. Oh, they were ahead of their times. They were so impatient. They couldn't wait for these constitutional methods. They needed to turn the tide of history. So it has been used either to valorize them or also to criticize them. And in fact, this was also their self-characterization. So they would describe themselves as adhir. Yeah, as there's a very famous poem by Nazrul Islam, Qazi Nazrul Islam, called Bidrohi, and it goes as Ami Bidrohi Chiru Ashanta. So this is like, I am one with restless heart. So, and this poem was recited by them again and again. This was a common poem that they, like Bismill's poem, they recited this one also, like Rande Basanti, all of you familiar with. So this is also self-characterization. A revolutionary is a person who is highly impatient. Now this is an idea I want you to hold on to because I'm going to come back to it. So just for the, and then second idea that came through the 1970s documentation was revolutionary is a person who reads and writes. So revolutionary is an intellectual. Yeah, so you will see in our days in JNU, everybody was like going about with a book. Everybody was an intellectual and everybody was a krantikari. So also the presumption inherent over here is that here is a person driven by ideas and driven by ideology. And so the intellectual is more lofty and opposed to them is the mundane, right? So there is a presumption of this being a superior way of being, yeah, a superior ontology. Yeah, and that is the force behind their actions. So, and here is a person whose actions will impact the world. Yeah? So a reading, writing, and intellectual revolutionary. And the third presumption, or the third idea, the third image that came through was revolutionary as an individual and an individualized rebel. Somebody who is not part of a collective. Somebody who is a lone wolf. A courageous young person who will go in, throw a bomb, or somebody who will go in and assassinate. Yeah? So there is almost an invisibilization of the collective. Yeah? And all the stories, so in today's lecture also I'm talking about Chandrashekhar Azad, but as I said, for me he's a doorway into looking at the lives of several other revolutionaries. So if you're looking at Bhagat Singh, then it's only Bhagat Singh, like that. So, and revolutionary history is conspicuous with that you will talk only about individuals, while revolutionary cells were anything about individuals. Yeah? Okay, so what about Azad now? I'm coming to Azad now. Now, Azad's, going back to the question, why has Azad's history or his story has not been visited by the historians? Why is there no good biography of written by a historian of Azad? Yeah? And the simple answer is, Azad doesn't fit this frame. The framework that got generated for us in the 70s on how to write revolutionary histories, Azad doesn't fit that frame. And since he does not fit that frame, he doesn't get written about. He is not seen as somebody who is worthy of historical gaze. So historical gaze shall land on the intellectual, on the reading, writing revolutionary. And he is not claiming that space at all. Yeah? So I'll quickly give you why he does not fit this framework. What is it about him that does not lend, what is it about his story that doesn't lend itself to the, which does not, the historical gaze doesn't find attractive. I find him very attractive, but he has not been written about. Okay, so, Azad is one of the rare revolutionaries who actually had a political career of 10 years, active revolutionary career of 10 years. Most revolutionaries get wiped out in 2, 3, or 4 years maximum. The active revolutionary life was very, very short. You would get either jailed, yeah, you will be taken out, put in the jail, you will get shot, or you will sometimes stop being a revolutionary also. You went your way and did something else. Yeah? Or you became an ideologue. You sat and wrote, and you got married, like Sachin Sanyal. Yeah? So he's one of those rare revolutionaries with an active political life of nearly a decade, but he did not leave behind any writings, despite that. He did not write himself. And I have one, now what I'm going to do is read out some small anecdotes to you, and some of them are in Hindi, I'll translate, yeah, just to tell you how he was thinking about it. So, so one day, Bhagat Singh, whose party name was Ranjit, asked Azad about the whereabouts of his family. So, and Azad got very angry and he says, "Dekho Ranjit, इस बार पूछा तो पूछा, अब फिर कभी मत पूछना। ना घर वालों को तुम्हारी सहायता से मतलब है और ना मुझे अपना जीवन चरित्र ही लिखना है। See Ranjit, which is Bhagat Singh's party name, this time you asked, so you asked. Now never ask me again. Neither do my family members care for your assistance, nor do I want to write my memoirs. So he was very emphatic about it. He was very clear that he was there for something else. He was not going to write his memoirs. So he doesn't write. So how do we access him? Then second reason he doesn't fit is that he is not easily traceable in the colonial archive either. You see, when he dies, even the policemen can't identify him properly. So they take a photo of his and then get somebody to come and try and identify him through the photo. So he evaded the police throughout and spent much of his life, underground life as a Behrupiya. He was a classic Behrupiya. He could change his garb. Yeah? So he could become a Kathavachak. He could wear a jineu, wear a dhoti, a top knot, and carry a Bhagavad in his hand and disappear. He could become a baniya, wear a simple cap or a dhoti kurta, and do the regular baniya thing. He could even become a domestic servant, wear a dirty undershirt and a thick dhoti. Or he could even become a police constable, wear a khaki uniform. And he could even become the car driver of the police superintendent, without the superintendent knowing that a revolutionary is driving him around. And that was Azad, his ability to hide. Yeah? And a revolutionary such as this will not be found in the archive. So how do you write his story? He doesn't fit the frame. Then there is also, when we think about revolutionaries, we think all of them were coming from the same background. But there was a deep class difference. I will not say that much caste difference because most of these revolutionaries were upper caste. Yeah? And the ones I think are not, we don't have enough information about them. Yeah? So there is a class difference between them. Now, very few, only people who read a lot about revolutionaries would know. He was born in this area of Bhavra, which is actually a Bhil area. And his father was a gardener in the government employee, very poor family. And at some point, because there wasn't enough to eat, he ran away to Bombay and worked on the dockyards. And he had one set of clothes, so he would wash them at night, put them for drying, and wear them again the next day. Immense poverty. Yeah? And then he heard that in Banaras, you can get full meals if you go there and learn Sanskrit, if you're a Brahmin. So he sat on another train and went to Banaras and enrolled himself in a Vidyapeeth so he could get full meals. I mean, he couldn't give much, I don't think he cared much about learning Sanskrit. But yeah, he did care about the meals that he got there. Should he be caring about Sanskrit? Maybe. So there is a class difference. See, many of the revolutionaries who are coming from Punjab are actually coming from petty bourgeoisie or some sort of a landed or people from government service. So, one of the things that some of the associates of Azad would say, Bhagat Singh अच्छे खासे खाते पीते घर का लड़का था. उससे भूख सहन नहीं होती थी. That Bhagat Singh was coming from a well-to-do family and he could not bear hunger. So there were stories, of how in underground life they get a broken pot. In that they'll make some dal. There's very little food. They'll have some burnt chapatis and all of them would just sit and eat that. And Bhagat Singh, when he would look at it, he was like, not happening. And then he would go and he had, there was this milkman and then there was this restaurant wala. All those were under, Bhagat Singh had enchanted them into giving him free food. So that's how he would fulfill his thing, but he would not eat that not so well cooked food. So they would observe, they'll say, ye achhe ghar ka ladka hai, isse nahi hoga. Yeah, so he's a young man from a good family. So there was a class difference. Yeah. Okay, and also Azad did not share. So we also presume ideological homogeneity. Yeah, as if whatever political pamphlets of HSRA are there, as if everybody is thinking that. The political homogeneity was not there. Ideological homogeneity was not there. Yeah? Azad did not share Bhagat's views on mass awakening or socialism. And in fact, Azad expressed surprise when they added S to the title of the organization, HRA. So it was known as Hindustan Revolutionary Army or Association. And this was an organization formed by Sachinnath Sanyal and Ram Prasad Bismil. And then after the Kakuri case, the cells sort of go underground and then they're re-energized and they're brought together by Azad and Bhagat. And they regroup as in Firozshah Kotla in 1928, and S, and in that meeting Azad doesn't attend, and S is added to the title, so it becomes HRA becomes HSRA, right? So when later Azad finds out about it, he's a little surprised. Why did they do that? So, and then the associates said that Bhagat Singh got it done. So he said, okay, then it'll be okay. So there was a friendship between them and he trusted him enough. But that doesn't mean they agreed on everything. So now what was socialism for Azad? Now I'll again read out a small line that he would say again and again. He says, Jehi din hoye surajwa, arhar ka daliya, dhan ka batwa, khub khachar ke khawaina. The day sun will shine, we will eat pulses and wheat, we will eat with great gusto. So for him, socialism was being able to eat a full meal. Yeah? And somebody like Rajguru, so I'm going to bring in other revolutionaries now. Now somebody like Rajguru could not differentiate between Marx and Rabindranath Tagore. According to him, both were kind old gentlemen with beards. Yeah? So you see, not everybody is ideologically socialized. Not everybody has gone to college. Not everybody has had education. Yeah. Then again, you may remember that they used to have these political dacoities. They would go and rob these rich people in the villages to get funds for the party. Now, once HSRA was formed, Bhagat Singh was actually against committing these dacoities. He used to feel that this actually brings a bad name to the revolutionaries, so we should not be doing it. But all these people before him were socialized into doing dacoities. So Azad believed in the dacoities. And the moment Bhagat Singh was captured, they again went and did a dacoity. Yeah. So what did Azad call them? Forced contributions or subscriptions. Now whenever they went and took forced subscription from people, they issued a receipt of the sum received, repayable in free India. When India will become free, we'll pay you back. Now we have taken some subscription for you. And they had an entire language, associated with dacoities. And you can see how much it was part of their world. So the word action was used for dacoity. So when they'll say we are going for action, so it was not just they're going to kill a policeman or, throw a bomb. They were going for dacoity. A member participating in dacoity was called Gyani, the one who had attained spiritual knowledge. The one who had not taken part in action was called a Bhakt, a devotee. Doesn't do anything, no? But the one who had complete knowledge of all aspects of carrying out a dacoity was an Avdhut, the supreme individual who in his devotion had forgotten his individual identity. Avdhut, the word means. The one who led a dacoity was Paramhans, the man god. And finally, the absconder, whom the police could not catch, was known as Jivan Mukt, the one who was emancipated and yet alive. Yeah. So you see, they had this whole vocabulary around dacoity because it meant a lot to them. Where will they get the money from? Yeah. Motilal Nehru would give, some other leaders will give, but where is the money coming from for all the guns and bomb making and for living in the underground? Because they had left their jobs, they had left the schools, they had left their families. Now some of them had some patrimony. So some of the revolutionaries had, and they would also keep funding. Yeah, but fundraising was a continuous problem. Now Azad was also ambivalent about the role of religion or the place of religion in the life of the revolutionaries. Now till the end he was called Panditji, and he was a Brahmin, Tiwari, and he wore his janeu. Now after I finished writing this book, it was brought to my attention that there is another memoir which talks about him having thrown away his janeu. Now I hadn't seen that book, but even if I had, I feel that the habitus, what Pierre Bourdieu talks about habitus, which is how your initial socialization into a particular life persists. Yeah. So I feel that was his habitus. Some sort of a religiosity was Azad's habitus, and it continued to persist. So I'll give you one or two more anecdotes. Personally I find them really interesting, so I'm sharing. So he had an associate known as Bhagwan Das Mahor. So Bhagat Singh would give Mahor books on Bakunin, on Lenin, and this and that, on atheism, on why God is, all that. So once he read it, a few chapters, and then he returned it. He said, I couldn't follow it. And he says, and Mahor says in his memoir, this is what he used to do with Bhagat. विरोध में उनको भारतीय दर्शन या वेदांत की दुहाई देकर संस्कृत के श्लोक सुनाने लगता था. Yeah, in opposition, I would I would tell him about Vedanta and start reciting Sanskrit shlokas. And in return, Bhagat would start reciting Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar, the Hanuman Chalisa, to tease Mahor because Mahor, according to him, looked like a monkey. Yeah. So, there was this thing. So it was not that everybody was decided on religion. It was being negotiated. These are revolutionaries in making. Then another instance I will say about how Azad is also getting socialized into ideas that Bhagat had. So one day, Azad, who was a vegetarian, is having some eggs. So Mahar recounts how he was once astonished to see Azad, a strict vegetarian, swallowing a raw egg. He asked him, "Pandit ji, ye kya? What is this, Pandit ji?" Azad replied, "Ande mein koi harz nahi hai. वैज्ञानिकों ने इसे फल जैसा बताया है. There is no problem with eating eggs. Scientists have likened it to a fruit." Mahar knew that egg is like a fruit was Bhagat's argument. Mahar replied that if egg was fruit, then a hen could be nothing less than a tree. And everybody burst out laughing. Azad was embarrassed at being caught in the act and interjected with annoyance. "Chal be, एक तो अंडा खिला रहा है और ऊपर से बातें बना रहा है. Get lost when you are feeding me eggs and other you are talking smart." So you see, so it is not decided. And Azad is also changing in his friendship with Bhagat Singh. Okay, so what I was trying to establish through these anecdotes was that Azad does not fit the frame easily. Yeah. So then he becomes difficult to write about because he's not presenting himself as an intellectual and all-knowing person and reading these big books and claiming to read them. Now, he could read English, but what he would do in the morning, he would get the newspaper, he would ask for the newspaper and get somebody to read it for him. Yeah, so you see the revolutionary movement was more heterogeneous than we think it was. I think I should go a little faster, it's time. I'm already over time. Yeah, okay, 5 minutes mein I'll summarize. So what are the sources for writing Azad's history? So we need a different kind of an archive if you want to write histories of revolutionaries who are not these writing revolutionaries. So what you need are memoirs, reminiscences, biographies, commemorative volumes, histories of objects associated with his life, like Kalash and his pistol or Bhagat Singh's felt hat and all of that. So there's lots of revolutionary memorabilia, ephemera, that can also be used to write these histories. And there is a lot of popular literature like Amar Chit Katha, and there are the oral history transcripts in Prime Minister Memorial Library. Okay, so what does Azad's life help us see? How does it shift? Mera slideshow. Yeah, so I tried to ask some new questions. I put them on a thing. Why does Azad not fit the frame? How does one write these revolutionary histories? In what way does examining Azad's life shift our perception of revolutionary ontology? I'm using only one heavy word, ontology, which means way of being. How the revolutionaries can be thought of, how do they imagine themselves? So how does it shift it? So the argument that I make is, you know about the revolutionary who's an intellectual, you know about the revolutionary who's impatient, you know about the revolutionary who's a lone wolf, but if you look at Azad's life, what you can see is a revolutionary who waits, yeah, who lives his life away from the public gaze, whose power lies in remaining hidden. And so this idea of waiting, and that's why I titled the book Waiting for Swaraj, that waiting is seen as stasis. In popular understanding, waiting is seen as stasis, or it is seen as being stuck, or the world having come to a grinding halt. However, waiting when it comes to these revolutionaries was anything but stasis. The waiting was where the action was. Waiting was where they went and bought the chemicals, got the carpenter to make the bomb cases, made the bombs, recceed the places, trained themselves, talked, lived. And waiting was the crucible that forged the revolutionary. So revolutionaries were not pre-made. They were not predestined. As they left their homes and started living together in the undergrounds, in these dens, that's where they began to get socialized. Yeah. Chandrashekhar Azad started his life as a non-cooperator, as a satyagrahi. So he goes from being a satyagrahi to being a krantikari to being an inqalabi. Yeah. Now, I'll stop by giving you two more anecdotes, and then I'll stop. There was more, but I think this would be enough. So there is a shift in the way we imagine the revolutionaries when we are looking. We need to shift our imagination when we are looking at revolutionaries such as Azad. Now I'll give you two instances of Azad advocating patience. Yeah, and we talked about the impatient revolutionary, but he continuously was saying you need to be patient. Yeah. He would often ask people not to do, he would use this word. You know, he was from that area, so his Hindi was different. So people not to do look, L-U-K, L-U-K, huh? Not L-O-O-K, which meant impatience, eagerness or nervous excitement. He felt that if people did look, it could cost them weapons, resources and lives. So once he reprimanded Rajguru as they were lying in wait outside the police chowki in Lahore. Look na kar, look karna hai to ghar ja. Because Rajguru wanted to enter the police officer's room and to shoot him instead of waiting for him to come out and then shoot him. So he's saying, don't be impatient. Another time, Azad refused to continue with the planned action. And he said, यदि उत्तेजना में आकर मैं वहाँ सहसा कुछ कर डालता तो इधर तुम लोगों की हालत खराब हो जाती. यूं ही उत्तेजना में आकर कुछ नहीं किया जाता. Had I done anything there out of excitement, you would have all gotten into trouble. One should never do anything on an impulse. So this idea of an impulse, so his character actually contests that idea. So I think that's my argument. I'm going to... Okay, you want me to stop? Thank you, Ravika.
I think there are many questions.
Okay, so I can stop here. So I think I've made my point. Yeah.
It has been such a delightful experience for all of us. I take this opportunity to thank Aparna for this marvelous lecture, and I thank all those who have taken time out to be present here this afternoon. And of course, tea is waiting outside.